I destroyed my 17-year-old son's truck with a sledgehammer in our driveway while he screamed at me, and then I called the police on myself. I came out at 7 while he was inside eating. Every window, both headlights, the windshield, about 40 holes in the hood. Then I put the hammer through the block cover and stood there breathing until he came out the front door. He came at me. My wife got between us. Neighbors were on their porches by then, and somebody was already filming. "He's insane," he was screaming. "He's actually insane. That's my truck. I paid for that truck." He'd worked 2 summers at a car wash for it. I called 911 myself and told the dispatcher there was a disturbance at my address and that I destroyed a vehicle registered to my son. 2 deputies came. They took statements from everybody on that street. They took my son's statement in the back of a cruiser for 40 minutes. I didn't say a word about why. My wife had papers drawn up inside of a week. "I'm not even going to ask," she said. "There is nothing you could tell me that makes that okay." He cried in his room for 3 hours. I opened my mouth and she put her hand up. "Don't. You broke something he earned." My son told the deputies I'd been unstable for years, that I'd threatened him, that he'd been afraid of me since he was small. None of it was true, and every single person believed him, including my mother, who called and said my father would be ashamed to share a name with me and that she was done. My brother left a voicemail I still have, 2 sentences, neither of them polite. The county charged me with criminal mischief and my wife filed for a protective order. My attorney sat down across from me and said the prosecutor wasn't interested in negotiating, that my son was going to testify, and that I was looking at real consequences and a permanent record. Then she said, "You have to give me something." So I told her to go to my house and look under the spare tire in the bed of that truck and to pull the messages off the old phone in the toolbox in my garage, the one my son thought he'd hidden well enough. She asked what she'd find. I told her the reason. She came back 3 days later looking like she hadn't slept. She put a folder on the table and sat down before she said anything. He'd been getting pulled in since January. 4 months. A group 2 towns over that had been telling him he was smart, that he was wasted here, that they had something for him. He was the driver. That was his part. He had a clean record, a registered vehicle, and a face nobody knew. It was set for that Friday, 9 o'clock. They'd texted him the route. I'd found the messages on a Tuesday. I photographed everything, drove to the sheriff's office, and sat in a plastic chair 2 hours. A deputy took the printouts in my son's name and said they'd make a note, and someone would follow up. Nobody followed up. Wednesday, I called the school resource officer. Thursday, I called a number for a gang intervention program that went to a voicemail box that was full. Friday afternoon, I stopped calling people. Here's what I worked out sitting in my kitchen. I had until 9. I could take his keys and he'd get a ride. I could lock him in a room and he'd go out a window, and I'd be the one arrested for it. I could tell my wife and she'd confront him and he'd deny it and they'd move him up a week. What I needed was for that vehicle to not exist, for my son to be somewhere with a deputy at 9 o'clock, and for every person in that group to see it on a phone screen and understand that this kid was a liability. All 3 of those things happened in about 90 minutes. At 9:04 that night, my son was in the back of a cruiser giving a statement about his father. The thing went ahead anyway with somebody else driving. It's been in the paper a dozen times. 2 people died in that house, and one of the kids in the car took a plea that will keep him inside until he's in his 40s. My son saw the driver's photo on the news. He was 17, and they'd sat next to each other in a Chevy Impala 9 days earlier. He called me that night from my mother-in-law's house, and he could not get a full sentence out. The charges were dropped in October. My wife read the folder at her attorney's office, and then drove to where I was staying and sat in my car in the parking lot without saying anything for a long time. He's 20 now. He's at a state school studying diesel technology. He calls me on Sundays, every Sunday for 3 years. I bought him a truck last spring. It's a bad one. He loves it.